Good afternoon. San Diego families are worried about the safety of their children. Unfortunately, we are seeing skyrocketing crime across the state of California, and California politicians have been part of the problem, not part of the solution. And we don't have to look very far to find a politician who has been absolutely absent on the issue of public safety, and in particular, safeguarding our children. Behind me is the office of Assemblymember Brian Maienschein. And we're here because he's never been in the community talking to parents, talking to residents about their concerns regarding the safety in our neighborhoods. In fact, one of the biggest issues we've been fighting with the criminal justice system on has been the placement of sexually violent predators in our neighborhoods, in residential communities close to schools and playgrounds and daycare centers. Sexually violent predators are not just any sex offender. SVPs, sexually violent predators, are the worst of the worst. In fact, the mental health professionals have examined them and have determined that the likelihood of them reoffending is high. Sexually violent predators have no place in a residential neighborhood. But unfortunately, Brian Maienschein authored the bill to let sexually violent predators be placed in residential communities in close proximity to our schools. What the hell is Brian Maienschein thinking that he believes that a sexually violent predator is appropriate to be placed in a residential community? Unfortunately, most voters are not aware of the damage that Brian Maienschein has done to our ability to keep our children safe. We believe that Brian Maienschein's bill, protecting the rights of sexually violent predators over the concerns we have for keeping our kids safe, we believe that that bill alone should disqualify him from serving another day in office. And that's why we're here to proudly endorse Kristie Bruce-Lane. Kristie Bruce-Lane has been involved actively in the fight against the placement of sexually violent predators. In fact, when an SVP was proposed for placement in Rancho Bernardo, and the SVP's name is Doug Badger, we reached out to Brian Maienschein's office. We implored him to get involved, and he refused. He was absent. He didn't lift a finger to help the community. But thankfully, we had Kristie Bruce-Lane and other community advocates step forward and organize the people in speaking out against the placement of Doug Badger in Rancho Bernardo. We were very fortunate to get his placement rescinded. However, since that time, 5 additional sexually violent predators have been proposed for placement in residential communities throughout San Diego County, and 2 of them have now been approved. All because people like Brian Maienschein in Sacramento refuse to protect our kids. Enough is enough. It's time to fire Brian Maienschein. It's time to hire Kristie Bruce-Lane so she can keep our neighborhoods and our kids safe. I want to call up Jeff Grace, who was one of our citizen activists on the ground in Rancho Bernardo. And he knows that Brian Maienschein was absent, didn't lift a finger to help us, but Kristie Bruce-Lane showed up and was there every step of the way. Jeff?
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Kristie. When we learned on September 22nd that the county was considering placing Douglas Badger, who had admitted to molesting over 500 children in his lifetime, within our neighborhood, we had no choice but to spring into action. Thank you to Carl for his support. Thank you to Kristie for your support. And in Brian's absence, which is just unbelievable to think about, an elected, paid political figure did not do one thing for his constituents, and several of us had to do his work to block that placement and to keep our neighborhood safe. Brian was nowhere. We reached out, no responses, didn't attend a 500-person rally to stop all this. So we're here to, as Carl said, fire Brian and bring in Kristie Bruce-Lane.
Now, Kristie Bruce-Lane has made Brian Maienschein's terrible, negligent record on sexually violent predators one of the core and key issues in her campaign. Shamefully, Brian Maienschein now realizes he's in trouble. Now he's trying to deceive voters into thinking that he actually did something on sexually violent predators, but we're here to make sure voters know the truth and why they should elect Kristie Bruce-Lane.
Thank you. Thank you, and I want to thank all the support that I have behind my campaign, all the community volunteers, the community stepping forward for fighting this when Brian Maienschein would not fight placing sexually violent predators in our community. I'm Kristie Bruce-Lane, running for California State Assembly District 76, and I am holding Brian Maienschein accountable for his disturbing bill AB1641, which allows sexually violent predators to be placed less than a quarter mile from our children. Brian Maienschein's outrageous bill has normalized placing sexually violent predators in our community within easy walking distance of our elementary schools. Sex offenders should be prevented from living near elementary schools for life, not just during the term of their probation or parole. Maienschein's record of being soft on crime and prioritizing criminals over victims is harmful. It's harmful to our citizens, it's harmful to our families, our children, and our communities. Maienschein previously voted to make it harder to prosecute gang members and even supported a bill that allowed for early release of criminals back out into our community. I'm a victim's right advocate. I am not an advocate for criminals. Our communities have been ravaged by crime, and our families and children are being victimized because state legislatures like Brian Maienschein has taken soft on crime stances. He is the poster boy for dysfunction, and he is the poster boy for soft on crime. I wonder, Brian Maienschein, do you understand the long suffering of the victims of rape and molestation? It's not just a moment of physical torture. The psychological impacts are for life. I realize the importance of balancing the scales in law enforcement, children, families, and communities, and balancing that scales of justice. And it's crucial for public safety. Common sense policies have to be implemented at the state level. You have to have the political will to do it. And I have that political will, and I will protect our children. Thank you.
We're happy to entertain any questions.
How do you think that this bill, being passed and just making sure accountability will reflect directly upon people who have dealt with SVPs in their past, and how it's going to implement further? Where's the accountability going to lie?
Well, when she gets to Sacramento, I think it'll be on her top priority list to make it accountable again. So, Kristie, what are your plans?
Yeah, so when I take this state in the state assembly, I'll immediately initiate and author a bill to not allow sexually violent predators to live within elementary schools, to live within range of our families and our communities. Like I said before, it's going to take somebody with political will to do it, and I do have that political will, and I will do that.